This video is sponsored by NordVPN.
Whenever I ask locals about downtown LA, I usually get responses like, some parts are okay, or it's getting better, or I never go there. And there's some data to back up those opinions.
The LA Times defines downtown LA as 5.8 miles located right here in a little nest of freeways. It's home to about 35,000 people with a population density of 4,800 people per square mile. The next largest city in the US is Chicago. Its central business district is also about 5.8 square miles, but it's home to 161,000 people for a population density of 27,000 people per square mile. Philadelphia, the center of the 7th largest metropolitan area in the US, is also about 5.8 square miles. It's home to 145,000 people for a population density of 24,600 people per square mile. Downtown LA's population density is closer to central Syracuse, New York.
So you might be thinking, it's a central business district. Who cares if people live somewhere else? But there's a lot of evidence to show that there's not a whole lot of office buildings here either.
Let's use the number of skyscrapers as a proxy for office density. New York City has 300, Chicago has 133, and LA has 27. Miami and Houston have more tall buildings.
I could go on, but I think you get the point. LA has a smaller downtown than you'd expect for a region this size. It's like a big city just sort of melted. The question this video tries to answer is why? So let's answer it after the bike bell.
I know that a lot of you watching this think you know the answer. Cars and sprawl. Los Angeles didn't grow up because it grew out. But Los Angeles existed before the car, and its downtown was smaller than you would expect back then too. So cars aren't the only answer. In 1930, construction began on the Empire State Building in New York, which was the tallest building in the world until 1972, when it was overtaken by the World Trade Center towers, again in New York. Why couldn't Los Angeles have built a tower to rival the Empire State Building in 1930? In 1930, Los Angeles had 1.3 million people in the city limits, and 2.2 million in LA County. It wasn't a small city. And 1930 was right in the transition from streetcars to automobiles for both cities. Los Angeles had the largest streetcar network in the world in the 1920s, and many of the lines converged in downtown. A large building in a central location wouldn't have been a crazy idea. The most straightforward answer was height limits. It would have been against LA code to build an Empire State competitor. In 1904, the city imposed a 150-foot limit on new buildings, with the only exception being City Hall. That building, constructed in 1928, is 454 feet tall. You can see how small downtown LA looks in this picture from that period. For comparison, this is New York at that same time. In 1956, voters approved lifting the height limit by a 3-to-1 margin. This set off a downtown building boom. By 1968, City Hall was no longer the tallest building in town, dwarfed by the 40-story Union Bank building. Today, the Wilshire Grand Center, built in 2017, and the iconic US Bank Tower, built in 1989, dominate the skyline. Both are over 1,000 feet tall. Like I said, the height limit went into effect in 1904, and 2 years later, San Francisco was leveled by a major earthquake and subsequent fires. You can imagine that the disaster only reaffirmed the need for a height limit, especially when the San Andreas Fault, the same fault that destroyed San Francisco, was discovered to continue to Southern California. It's only 30 miles from downtown LA. The US Bank building is designed to withstand an earthquake of 8.3 on the Richter scale and can sway with the gusty Santa Ana winds, but they didn't know how to do that back then. Why did Los Angeles even pass a height limit anyway? What's wrong with tall buildings? Well, a couple of things if you're a civic leader in turn of the last century Southern California. Los Angeles was not founded and settled because they wanted it to be another Manhattan. This isn't the story of Chicago, an industrial colossus that had ambitions to be the largest city in the world. Los Angeles was a farming community. Settlers were amazed by the variety of produce that could be grown in LA County. You had oranges, grapes, alfalfa, nectarines, and on and on. The climate was perfect for just about any crop you'd want to grow, provided you had water. The climate was also perfect for sanitariums and hospitals, at least according to Los Angeles promoters. The California Pavilion at the Chicago World's Fair claimed LA had a climate like Italy, and it would be perfect for curing ailments. That message resonated with Industrial Revolution-era urban dwellers. Cities back then were dirty, gray, and teeming with illness. They were often overcrowded, as this was the era before cars and reliable mass transit. People had to walk to the factory from their overcrowded tenement buildings. The dream of life in Los Angeles was not available to everyone, though. Initially, only the wealthy could afford to move west and recuperate in the Southern California sunshine. They built large homes in the countryside with ample fresh air. This was the beginning of a decentralized power structure in the area. In most cities, the elite were downtown real estate interests and industry leaders. Los Angeles didn't have that same focus, and it started way back in the 1800s. Los Angeles did grow in the first decades of the 20th century, and not just with the sickly rich. This is when Los Angeles' largest, most important industry really got rolling. And I'm not talking about Hollywood, and I'm not talking about oil. I'm talking about real estate speculation. Making money as a city grows is not a new thing. The New York Commissioner's Plan of 1811 was designed to commodify Manhattan and promote the orderly sale of land. But Los Angeles perfected it and took it to new heights, or sprawl. Huge tracts of orchards and pastures were open to home development, and it seemed that everyone in the city was either a builder or a realtor. As I mentioned, Los Angeles had the largest streetcar network in the world during this era, and that's because real estate developers installed them so buyers could access their neighborhoods. What does all this have to do with the size of downtown LA? Well, in this early era of streetcar suburb expansion, downtown LA was still the absolute center of the metro area. In 1920, 90% of retail trade occurred in the city center. But by 1950, that number was only 17%. This is one of the reasons that the height limit was rescinded. Downtown was clearly not doing well, and downtown real estate interests thought that shiny skyscrapers would help bolster the area's image and encourage people to return downtown. But by this point, many of the wealthiest residents had a stake in continuing the development of suburban neighborhoods. This is where the real power and money were. And downtown had competition, as skyscrapers are going up along Wilshire Boulevard and Century City on the city's west side. Los Angeles had also begun to bump up against all of the other communities in Southern California, forming a vast sea of suburbia connected by an increasingly large freeway network, and pockmarked with areas of commercial development that further de-emphasized downtown LA. Long Beach, Anaheim, Riverside, and others became cities in their own right. They were still overshadowed by Los Angeles, but are cities with so many people that they could be the center of their own urban areas if they were anywhere else. Los Angeles became the largest node in a polycentric metropolis, instead of the dominant city surrounded by a sea of lesser suburbs. Today, there are efforts to increase the number of people living in downtown LA and densify that area, but I think it's safe to say that downtown LA will never achieve the heights of Chicago or Manhattan.
Hey, I'm in a hotel room editing the video you just watched. I hope it turned out okay. When I travel, I've been traveling a lot more lately, I like to make sure that my browsing is secure and that I'm not getting my bandwidth throttled by crappy hotel Wi-Fi. I also like to make sure I can watch the Netflix shows I want to watch when I want to watch them, wherever. And I like to watch soccer and make sure that I'm not getting hit with blackouts. For all those reasons, I really like NordVPN to protect my internet and let me browse securely and safely. I first realized I needed a VPN in my life when I tried to torrent a file that I needed for a video I was making. There was no other way to get that file. Now, I got the file, but then I also got a sternly worded letter from my ISP basically telling me never to torrent a file again, no peer-to-peer file sharing. That's when I realized I needed something to keep me secure and safe and private, and that's when I downloaded NordVPN. I also love that NordVPN is just really easy to use. You open the app, choose a server, and you're off and running. It also protects up to 6 devices under one account. That means you can have NordVPN installed on your laptop, your phone, even your router. Wherever you go, NordVPN has your back. You can watch the shows wherever you want to watch them, and it keeps you safe and private. So go to the link on screen or in the description to get 2 years plus 1 month at a huge discount. It's also totally risk-free because NordVPN is a 30-day money-back guarantee. So go check it out. Thanks so much.